Okay, so in this segment, we're just going to go through the main plot of the epic. Not like every single detail of the plot, but just enough so that we don't get lost as we crack open our books and start to read. So here's basically how the plot goes. The story has two sets of paternal cousins, which means that they're sons. They're the sons of two brothers. These paternal cousins are vying to control the kingdom of the Kurus. Remember that kingdom? That was the same place where we think the Vedas first got compiled together into one text. It's probably no accident, actually, but in any case, the story that the epic tells about this Kuru kingdom is a lot different than anything we find in the Rig Veda. The main heroes are one set of five brothers called the Pandavas. Their eldest is named Yudhishthira. They're all married to the same wife, the princess Draupadi, who's from the neighboring kingdom of Panchala. Maybe we should, for now, bracket off this oddity of five men married to one woman, just for the moment. We can say that, I'll just say that it wasn't seen as normal even back then. It was an oddity, though there are actually scholars have researched a few isolated communities in the Himalayas that do carry on polyandrous marriage patterns even today. So maybe it's related to them, who knows? The Pandavas are the heroes of the epic, and their enemies are called the Kauravas. These are 100 wicked cousins, all born to a blind king of the Kurus named Dhritarashtra. The leader of the Kauravas is the elder brother, who's named Duryodhana, and they stop at nothing to try and defeat their cousins and gain the throne. As we're going to find out, the Pandavas in the end also are going to stop at nothing to defeat their cousins, the Kauravas. The conflict starts when the two sets of cousins come of age. The blind king, Dhritarashtra, decides that the kingdom should be split evenly in half. So the Kauravas and Pandavas both have countries to rule and all can be, well, compromise. This works for a bit until two things happen. First, the Pandavas build a really magnificent and prosperous kingdom, and so the Kauravas get jealous. Right? Then, the second thing is that in a rigged dice match, Yudhishthira, who's the leader of the Pandavas, remember, he gambles away his entire magnificent kingdom. His brothers, he gambles himself away, and then he gambles away his wife to Duryodhana. The Kauravas bring Draupadi out in the assembly, try to rip off her clothes. She ends up miraculously having an endless sari, but still the damage is done, and the insult is a permanent and intractable one. The Pandavas are eventually forced to go into exile and into the forest for 12 years. Then they have to hide in a city for one more year before the agreement is that they'll be given half their kingdom back. The trick is that if they're discovered during that time, in those 13 years, they have to go in exile into the forest for 12 more years. That's the catch. They do all of this, but when the time comes 12 years later for the Pandavas, 13 years later, to get their kingdom back, the Kauravas say, they refuse. Right? Despite all kinds of diplomatic efforts, including an effort by Krishna, there's like no compromise, and eventually the two sides go to war, along with their various allies who are drawn into the conflict. The resulting massive battle is described at great length in the Mahabharata, and it results in the death of more than, get this, 1.6 billion warriors. Eventually, the Pandavas do win the war with the help of their cousin Krishna, who it turns out to be is an incarnation of Vishnu. Spoiler alert, I'm sorry about that. But it's an empty victory for them because of the massive cost that the war has taken on its people. The rest of the books then focus on the ways in which the Pandavas try to heal the wounds of this broken country that they inherit. They carry out various kinds of Vedic grand rituals to atone for their sins, including performing a horse sacrifice. They make great efforts to rebuild the social and political fabric of the kingdom. They establish a new moral order that's based on principles of dharma. And eventually, they go to heaven. And that's where the epic comes to an end. So that's the basic plot of the Mahabharata. Let's take a break here. And when we come back, we'll talk about the different characters that populate the epic so that you get a better sense of what you're reading when you're reading it. So see you later.